Even though in the first book, both he and Wenja were explained as being really strong and really capable men of fighting and all this other stuff, they just didn't do anything. They fell flat and they were just existing there to be love interests pretty much. Hello everybody, my name is Heather and I am doing a review on Heart of the Sun Warrior, which is the sequel to The Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I really enjoyed The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, but with this book, I was actually kind of disappointed. We'll get into that later, but first of all, I'm going to do a summary. So if you haven't read Daughter of the Moon Goddess, I would suggest not watching this one just yet until you have read that book, because, well, there's going to be spoilers in the summary of The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, because this is the next book, and there's no way to keep those out. Then after the summary, I will be getting into some spoilers of Heart of the Sun Warrior. So if you don't want to see those spoilers, then I will try and leave a timestamp in the description and you can skip them. So let's get into it. The summary starts with, of course, Shinyin has won her mother's freedom, and she and Pinga and her mother are all living on the moon free. They are free to roam around. They are allowed to come and go as they please, as long as the moon is lit every night. Otherwise, there will be repercussions from the emperor. Now, you have Leeway who comes to visit her. They are in a relationship, and then you also have Wenja, who basically stalks her at night and wants her to come outside and speak with her, or speak with him, but she doesn't because he betrayed her, and rightfully so, because that's a big no. Then you have people who are coming to visit. You have a group of people who come to visit the moon, and they cause issues, which then cause their freedom to be threatened, and they decide to flee, and that's where the story begins. Shinyin now has to fight for their freedom all over again, and it is a very exciting story for the most part. I enjoyed the ride. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed the overall story. There are some aspects in it that I just don't see why they were in there, because it just didn't fit with the rest of the story. But overall, it was a very good read. I enjoyed it, but the parts that I didn't like actually kind of took away from a lot of the story. But I'll get to that in a minute. I will start with the things that I did like and then move on to the things I didn't like. The first thing I really like about this is the writing style. I really enjoyed the writing style in the first book, and the writing style in this book was just as good. It was beautiful, lyrical. The descriptions in it just, I don't know if you get pictures in your mind, but I see the pictures in my mind from reading the story, and it just transports me there. And I love that in a book. And she has such beautiful writing. I enjoyed that so much. That was honestly part of the reason why I read the book and enjoyed the book so much, is because of her writing. The next thing that I really enjoyed was Leeway'S Patience with Shinyin. When Shinyin was being her doubtful self and didn't know what she wanted, he waited for her, and he didn't push her, and he didn't try and shove his wants down her throat. He basically just waited. But that's also kind of an issue. He just waited and never did anything, and he was kind of just left behind, and I'll get into that in a minute. But he was very patient with her and didn't try to force her into anything and force her to be with him, even though she chose someone else. The next thing that I liked was, I liked how Shinyin felt all of her emotions in this book. When she was grieving someone's death, you saw her grieve. Whenever she was happy, you saw her happy. Whenever you saw whenever she was angry, she was angry. She had all of those emotions. And I felt because she was allowed to have all of these emotions and not shove them down like other strong characters in other books do, she was able to empathize and relate to the mother of the sunbirds a lot more. Because she has experienced death, she was able to relate and say, this is how I feel when I've lost these people. And she's lost so much more. She lost, I can't even remember, I think it was like 9 of her children. But she lost all of her children except for 1. And she was able to see, I lost so much and this is how I feel. I can only imagine how this woman feels losing all of her children but 1. And so that helped a whole lot in that situation. Now, what I didn't like was I felt, while I did like the fact that her father was brought back, I kind of felt that it was pointless and it didn't flow with the rest of the story. The father was there, he was still alive, and she wanted to make him immortal again because she finds out that he was originally an immortal and the original owner of the dragon bow, but he was dying, so she had to steal the immortal elixir and give it to him. Well, he becomes an immortal, and that's pretty much it. He's not really in the rest of the story. He just fades to the background pretty much. That's just it. He's just there. He and the mother come back together and are happy, and she's happy that they're together and finally a family. But to me, there was just no point in having it in the story. There was no point, because what was the point of having him there when he's not even going to be a main part, a driving point to the rest of the story? It just kind of fell flat. He kind of fell flat. Honestly, a lot of the characters were flat. But even the whole stealing the immortal elixir thing was glossed over. There were no repercussions. There was no danger there. It was just, oh, you stole the immortal elixir. Okay, bye. There was nothing. It was all glossed over. It was all forgotten about. The end. The next thing that I didn't care for, and it's probably one of the biggest things that I did not like in this, besides the last one, and that was the death of Prince Yanji. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know. I'm not very good at pronouncing these names, but I did not like that at all. I did not feel like she needed to have written in the death of a young boy to further the story. It could have been furthered many other ways. If the father wasn't brought back, the mother could have died, and it could have just as much furthered the story as the young boy. Because honestly, I don't feel like it even furthered anything at all, other than just gave her more grief. And if you were just trying to give her more grief, there are plenty of other people in that group that could have died to give her grief, so she could relate to the mother of the sunbirds. But the little boy didn't have to die, and I don't like that at all. I think it was just kind of a pointless death to kill off a little boy. And my next one was the fact, I mentioned it just before, Leeway was just a shadow of himself. And honestly, so was Wenja, but mostly just Leeway. He wasn't really there most of the story, even though in the first book, both he and Wenja were explained as being really strong and really capable men of fighting and all of this other stuff. They just didn't do anything. They fell flat, and they were just existing there to be love interests, pretty much. And even Leeway, where Leeway comes in, he was only used as a plot device by the Empress to keep Shinyin and Leeway from getting married. And even that only lasted like 2 chapters, 1, maybe 2 chapters. And it just was pointless. It was pointless. I felt like they needed more. They were just a shadow of themselves from the first book, and I didn't like that. I wanted more out of these characters instead of the flat people that they were in the second book. They really were just existing to be love interests, like I just said, but really that's what it felt like. The only person that really had any personality was Shinyin, and even Shinyin was still struggling and didn't really have any of the character growth from the first book. Right now in this book, it just felt like she lost all of it and forgot all of it. And then the last thing that I didn't like was the ending and Shinyin's choice of men. I didn't care for the ending because I felt like it was rushed in some places and really, really slow in others. And there was no balance. There was just no in between. The fighting part was rushed through really fast, and then the last few chapters drug on. I know it was supposed to show that she was grieving the death of Wenja, but still, it drug on a little too much for my liking. And it could have sped up just a little bit to further on the story. But I feel like with Shinyin, when Wenja died, she realized how much she cared for him. And even says that now that he's gone, she can't even remember any of the bad stuff. And I'm just going to say, in real life, that's not true. You don't just forget all of the bad things just because someone dies. You remember the bad things and you remember the good things. It's just part of life. And I didn't like how that was portrayed in the book. And I know it's fantasy and it's not real life, but I didn't like that because it's just, when someone betrays you as badly as Wenja betrayed Shinyin, it's just not something you are going to just forget because they died. It's just not gonna happen. You can forgive, but forgetting something like that, it just, no. Now, I also didn't like that this is during the end, she strings Leeway along at the end after Wenja dies and basically makes him believe that they are going to get married. She stays at the Celestial Kingdom and stays there with him, and he believes that they're going to get married, and he's just waiting for her to recover. And then she completely breaks his heart when she's like, I can't marry you because I don't want to be tied down here at this kingdom. I just don't want to be here. And so she leaves, and then she goes back home, and then she wallows in herself there for like a year, and then she goes to wherever and she wallows there for however long, and it just felt like it drug on for a while. I honestly think that if her excuse to Leeway was that she didn't want to be tied down to the kingdom, she shouldn't have been with Wenja either, because technically he is still the heir of the demon realm. He will be the next ruler because his mother is now the empress or whatever she is of the demon realm. So if she's tied down there, or if she didn't want to be tied down at the Celestial Kingdom, she doesn't want to be tied down at there either. And both places are not a good fit for her. So to me, she shouldn't have even been with either of them. And honestly, to me, I felt like it would have been a much better ending, even if she would have died herself and allowed Wenjia to live instead. And then she could have been sent to Earth as a mortal, or even the prince could have been sent instead of Wenjia as the mortal and then turned into an immortal later on. I didn't like the ending. I felt like everything was just wrong with this book. I did like it enough to finish it, and I did like it for the most part, but there were so many things wrong with it and so many things that irked me about it that I was more frustrated by the time I finished reading it, that my rating isn't going to be good for a lot of people. I honestly would have rather have had this as I would have rather have had The Daughter of the Moon Goddess as a standalone than to have this book. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I would give this book probably a 2.5, very most stars, 2.5 stars. And yeah, I was very disappointed in this book, and I hate that because I liked The Daughter of the Moon Goddess so much that I just recommended it to my sisters. And I was thinking about rereading that book at some point. But the second book, no, I'm not very happy with the ending. And that's kind of a bummer. Not happy with the second book, not happy with the ending. Overall, I don't recommend. I don't. Just stay to Daughter of the Moon Goddess and have that ending as the ending. Don't read this book. Unless, of course, you just want to, then, whatever, read it. That's all I have, though. Then I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you like this book, let me know in the comments. If you don't like this book, then high five. We're right there in it. I saw most of the people on Goodreads enjoyed this book and gave it pretty high ratings. But of course, a lot of those people wanted her to end up with Wenjia, and I didn't. I just didn't feel like they were a very good fit. And yeah, that's what I have. And I'll see you all later. Bye.